A very good morning and welcome all of you to the daily news analysis for 12th of February 2025 here at PW Only IS English with me Jatin Verma. AI Summit, the first AI Summit and the Prime Minister's address. History has shown that technology has never deprived anyone of the jobs. His technology has always created more jobs. This is what the PM said in the AI Summit. More on it in the news analysis. Second news article, can rape be the compromise? Can marriage be the compromise in a case of rape? Allahabad High Court has been granting bails to many perpetrators of the crime like rape by stitching together the marriage between the perpetrator and the victim. So this is happening. We'll see more on it in the editorial on the rape today. Don't erase or reload EVM data. April 2024 judgment of Supreme Court. Now we are to verify whether the EVMs are tamper-proof or not. Certain technological terms will be there, like what is the temporary memory and what is the flash memory in the EVM. Can EVMs be controlled by, manipulated by certain outside elements by manipulating the software? This is the third news article that we are going to see in today's news analysis. Then, a legal remedy that I have already told you. How will the freeze on US aid affect world and other countries like Haiti, Vietnam, so many countries, Afghanistan, India's neighboring countries, Bangladesh, Malaysia, Maldives, so many countries are affected by US, are beneficiaries of US aid. How will it impact India directly? How much India is getting in terms of US aid funding? These are the news articles that we are going to see today. And the last one is how budget has reduced the social sector spending this year again. How much is the spending on health sector? Even though the national health policy talks about spending 2.5% of India's GDP, but budget has not been able to match that national health policy target of 2017. The policy was brought out in Modi's regime only, but we haven't been able to spend even 0.80% of India's budget on health. And that is why when the COVID type pandemics, they strike, we are badly affected. Doctor to population ratio, health, the hospitals, the R&D hospitals, research hospitals are facing the burden of referrals. So that is the saga here. Let's get started with the first article. PM Modi making some important remarks at AI Summit. He says that history has shown that technology won't take away work. New types of jobs are created every time there is some new technological innovation. Well, that is a general statement, but AI seems to be depriving many people, even the companies like Google, Apple. So many companies have already started slashing their workforce by numbers like 5,000, 10,000. Not to talk about India's Infosys, not to talk about India's Wipro and TCS type companies which are having exposure in the US. We are facing the double whammy as a populous country. On one hand, we are having the brunt of AI, and on the other hand, we are having the brunt of Donald Trump. That means H-1B visa holders are planning to come back to India because the citizenship rule change that has happened, the advent of protectionism in the light of Donald Trump. So we have to juggle with that. Well, our Prime Minister is the co-chair. India is the co-chair of the AI Summit, the first AI Summit happening in France, along with France there, right? We've already seen Conference of Parties 15 where India and France co-chaired, or India and France came up with the things like International Solar Alliance. This time it is artificial intelligence. Now, our Prime Minister talked about reskilling. Reskilling of the workforce is the need of the hour in case we want to foolproof our employment strategies, our people, our unemployed people or employed people against the advent of AI technology. You understand what reskilling is? We need to reskill the people in the light of advent of AI. Another important statement that he made is that the artificial intelligence, the framework for artificial intelligence is not just about managing risks and rivalries. We are being many countries are being agnostic towards AI or pessimistic towards AI. The need of the hour is to be having a positive outlook. As I've written here, we need to be positive, having a positive framework towards artificial intelligence first of all. And we need not see India and China as rivals. We need not see India and France as rivals or India and USA as rivals when it comes to artificial intelligence. Even though President Donald Trump is banning the sale of GPUs to countries like India, China. But we need to see that we need not be risk averse. We need to adopt it. We need to embrace the innovation AI. Otherwise, the strategy would go wrong altogether. This is what the PM is saying. Governance frameworks for artificial intelligence are not just about managing risks and rivalries. Prime Minister said at the AI Action Summit in Paris, which India is co-chairing. So, prelims oriented fact is out there for you. India is co-chairing this summit, okay, with France. That is one takeaway. Second is we need not be risk averse. We need to be adopting this new innovation. Even though we are a laggard, India is lagging behind other countries when it comes to artificial intelligence, GPUs and other components that go into artificial intelligence. Now, PM called for a collective approach to set standards for AI. Let me tell you here, the WWW revolution, the management of internet, when the advent of internet happened, it is the rules are well laid out. Okay, the internet association countries, that association is there. The rules and the way the governance of internet is well laid out. But similar kind of thing needs to happen for AI also. Whether the copy pasted material would be allowed, whether the robots will be allowed, deep fake type of things are happening, that should be allowed, or where should the buck stop? Where do we need to put a dot that this is the acceptable limits of AI and these are non-acceptable limits of AI? So that kind of governance mechanism has to be there. Otherwise, if the present approach of countries looking at each other as enemies when it comes to AI also will spoil the opportunity that we've got to advance this generation, advance this civilization. Now, another thing, crux of the PM's address, he acknowledged the fear of widespread job losses. Prime Minister is acknowledging the fear that there is a fear that job losses will happen. But history, he says, history has shown that every time the technological innovations have happened, they have led to new types of jobs, new types of work opportunities being created. So what we need is positive outlook, reskilling of workforce is needed, a need for collective global efforts to establish governance and standards that uphold our shared values, address the risks, and build trust amongst the countries. So, this is what he said. Governance capabilities for management of, for regulation of AI need to be there. But this is happening at a time when is it fine now? Is there an audio connectivity now? That mic actually got discharged. So that is why the problem. I hope it is working fine for everyone now. Just a minute. Okay, seems to be working fine now. Okay, so this was the context. This was the, you can say, the takeaway from the Artificial Intelligence Summit happening for the first time in France. Okay, so now it should be working fine. Where did I keep the presenter? Okay, let me just pick up the presenter for changing the slides, guys. Just pardon me for today's bugger up. This mic issue has been frequently occurring, but I've requested the team also to do the needful here. Now, coming to the other aspects here, governance capabilities are lacking in the areas like computing, okay, computing power, talent, data, or the financial resources to ensure the adequate compliance, the access to all. AI things, the AI technologies are not accessible to all. The skilling of workforce, not accessible to all. The GPUs, the important components that go into the making of the AI, the development of the AI in countries like India especially. Okay, so these things are there. The crux again, he called for pooling together of resources. So what is the solution? We need to pool together the resources and the talent that we have. So by collaborating with countries like France, who are ahead of India. Okay, developing open source systems for improving trust in AI systems. Open source systems should be there. The patented softwares which are costly for developing countries should not be there. So in order for India, in order for the developing countries especially to take advantage out of AI, we need more open source softwares, systems, which can be openly, easily accessed by the developing countries and its youth, right, for developing further technologies. Building quality data sets free from any biases. Data sets means, for example, if you ask China's AI software that they have built, that where is Arunachal Pradesh? So that becomes, it does not answer the question. Show me the map of India, how many states are there in India? So they would not, the China's AI will not answer the questions around the controversial geographical sites in India, disputed sites between India and Pakistan, India and China. Those type of things will not be answered. Is India a good country? You ask it, it will not give you the answer. So these biases that are there, that could be there in the AI, needs to be avoided. Right, so this is there. Democratizing technology and create people-centric applications. So people-centric applications like Google Maps, those type of applications which are free for the users, which are, everything should not become paid, right? Like we see Meta, these softwares that are there, Chat GPT, etc. Their paid versions which are excluding the free access to internet sources, that should be curbed. Those global norms, governance norms of AI need to be laid down by coming together, by pooling together of the resources, of the governance elements, everything. Now, about India-France, since this summit is happening in India, how is the India-France collaboration going on? As I said, in 2015, we collaborated in the Conference of Parties 15 under the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, UNFCCC. At that time, we came out with International Solar Alliance. This is the time we need to come up with something around the AI governance and AI regulation, right? Many countries are grappling with this AI challenge, and somebody needs to bell the cat here. Now, Indo-French collaboration on this matter, the International Solar Alliance can be meaningful in this regard. High electricity consumption will be there by AI data centers, since they consume a lot of data. So what we need is, we need green energy component in that to provide the source of electricity to these AI data centers. Source of energy should be green. So both the countries, India and France, are citing that the International Solar Alliance that was stitched together by the combined efforts of both the leaders of France and India can come in handy over here. So this was the first issue today. Don't erase or reload EVM data. So first of all, the April 2014 judgment of 2024 judgment of the Supreme Court. A plea was filed by Association of Democratic Reforms that EVMs are not tamper-proof. EVMs are not agnostic to political parties. So what if a EVM is tampered in a manner that if you are casting the vote for Congress, but it is going to BJP, by pressing the button here, by tampering with the button here, if the button 1 is assigned to, let's say, Aam Aadmi Party, And then in the controlling unit, this is the controlling unit, this is the voting compartment here, right? This is under the voting compartment, you have ballot unit. Ballot unit is the unit where you cast your vote. From the ballot unit, it goes to the control unit, and from control unit to VVPAT. That VVPAT brings out the paper trail, the print of the vote that you've cast, that your vote has actually been cast, without revealing the party to which the vote has gone actually, right? So the point here is, if you are casting the vote, pressing the button number 1, which says it is for Congress candidate, what is the guarantee that it is actually going to the candidate of Congress party or Aam Aadmi party? Can't they be so tampered that if you are casting the vote for Congress, but it is going to BJP, the winning party, for example only. This is just an example. So this is the doubt raised by Association of Democratic Reforms, an NGO, a not-for-profit organization which has been working in the arena of the electoral reforms, electoral cleansing, you can say. Okay, so this is the doubt that has been cast. In the light of this doubt cast by the NGO and the petitioner, in April 2024, Supreme Court said that we will arrange for the verification of the EVMs, verifying the technological components involved. So what are the technological components that are supposed to be verified? The technological components are ballot unit. The ballot unit is controlled by the microcontrollers in the control unit. Here in the control unit, you have microcontrollers that control how the vote is actually going, for which party the vote is actually going, irrespective of what is written on button 1, button 2, button 3, button 4. Okay, so there are so many buttons in the EVM. Whether what is written on the button is actually being translated into the vote for that political party or not, this is the question. Now, to verify this, Supreme Court admitted the plea and gave the direction to Election Commission of India in April 2024 that make arrangements for assuaging the doubts, for addressing the doubts of the petitioner, of the one who filed the case. Now what happens? Election Commission of India came back to the Supreme Court that it will cost 40,000 per ballot machine for verification of this thing. Now Supreme Court is scolding the Election Commission of India that we did not ask you to, erase everything or, go into that much detail. So it shouldn't be costing you 40,000 rupees. It should be costing less, since all that the Supreme Court said is that you have to verify only the ballot control unit microprocessor, which processes the microcontroller, which controls the vote, that the vote actually goes to the political party to which it has been cast. Right? So why are you charging? Why is the company which is going to verify this asking for 40,000 rupees? This is the question before the Supreme Court. Now, let me tell you the technology behind EVM machine. Ballot unit, in the ballot unit, there is a microcontroller which controls whether the EVMs are agnostic to political parties, they are numb to political party. They are not biased in a favor of or against any political party. So that is the meaning of the term agnostic. So this thing, whether the EVM is party agnostic or not, is controlled by the microcontroller that is installed in the EVM controlling unit also, right? They do not recognize party or candidate names. What they recognize is the buttons pressed on the ballot unit. So the button pressed for Jhadu, button pressed for Communist Party of India, only by the pressing of the button, the vote is translated. Okay, so the EVM, the controllers, microcontrollers do not know the party. They are not knowing the party or the candidate. They only act according to microcontrollers, only control the vote according to the button being pressed. If button 1 is being pressed, the vote will go to the party written on button 1. If button 8 is pressed, the vote will go to the party or symbol written on button number 8. So this is the meaning over here, right? Now, all three units, what are the three units? EVM, ballot unit, control unit and voter verified paper audit trail had their own microprocessors. How is this an advantage? If each of the three units, one microcontroller is installed here, one microcontroller is installed in the control unit, this is control unit, this is ballot unit, and one microcontroller is installed in the EVM, VVPAT. So what happens when you press the button here, the data generated here is translated into the control unit. Control unit also has got its own microcontroller. That means the votes, when they are tallied, they are tallied independently in each of these three units. And when the number comes out the same from three independent units having three independent microcontrollers, that means the number, if it is same, it means that the buttons on the EVM are agnostic to, they are numb to which political party the vote is being cast for. I hope you understood the point here. So this is the technological side of EVM. Now, judges are intervening in this matter because the plea has been filed to ask from the Supreme Court, to ask from the Election Commission of India whether EVMs are tamper-proof or not. In this proceeding, the Supreme Court asked if the company manufacturing the EVM, can it control the microcontrollers? They said yes. But at the stage the microcontrollers are made, you never know which button will be given to which political party. For example, if the company manufacturing EVM is influenced by the ruling political party to manufacture the machines in a manner that every ballot button number 1 or 8 pressed to, or 8 or 7 or any ballot button that is pressed, the vote should go to one political party only. For example, BJP only. But the point is, these buttons are assigned differently in different constituencies. Button 1 in constituency 1 might go to BJP. Same button 1 in constituency 7 might go to Congress. So at the time of manufacturing, it is not known to which political party which button will be assigned. Got it? So this is the thing, that is what is sought to be verified. Now for the verification, Election Commission of India gave the contract to a private company. That company is saying that we will charge 40,000 rupees per machine, which is not acceptable to Supreme Court since the cost is very high. So this is the matter. That is why Supreme Court said that you are not supposed to erase or reload the EVM data. Okay, we are not asking you to go into too much of detail that you have to erase or reload the EVM data. All that you are required to do is to verify the microcontrollers, okay, and ballot casting units that is there. The doubt is malicious software could be uploaded along with the symbols. When a vote is cast, the signal travels from the ballot unit to the VVPAT to the control unit. If VVPAT has the malicious software, then what will happen? This is the doubt. To assuage the doubt, to address the doubt, verification is now being asked for. Supreme Court raised concerns over the cost of verification set by the EC after being informed that rupees 40,000 will be charged for verifying one EVM. Supreme Court clarified that checking and verifying the burnt memory of the microcontroller of the EVM for signs of tampering does not envisage the erasing or reloading of data in the machines that you are asking for 40,000 rupees. What is the burnt memory? The burnt memory of EVM and VVPAT refers to the non-volatile memory. That is the permanent memory that does not get erased even when the machine is turned off. And Supreme Court said that such burnt memory, such data should be stored for 45 days from the date of declaration of results for verification, for entertaining any petition, any plea filed in the court against EVMs. Are you understanding this technical thing? That what is burnt memory can be asked in your prelims, science and technology. So we have incorporated this. Burnt memory is a sort of permanent memory that does not get washed away even when the EVM is switched off. Number one, this burnt memory can be reset or verified. Okay, so now for verification, for the purpose that after elections are concluded, if Kejriwal says that he lost because EVMs are malicious, EVMs are biased in favor of BJP, for 45 days to entertain such claims of losing candidate, Kejriwal or anybody for that matter, to verify those claims and to entertain those claims for 45 days, this burnt memory cannot be reset as per the order of the Supreme Court in April 2024. Done. Moving further, earlier the Supreme Court in the judgment in April 24, this is all background that has been covered. Okay, now to assuage the concerns of unsuccessful candidates, in the 5% EVMs in a constituency, verification of microcontroller chips will be allowed. Okay, so for example, if there are 20 EVMs to be used in a constituency, Patiala, or let's say Chandigarh, 20 EVMs going to be used. Out of those 20, 5% of the EVMs will have microcontroller installed in them, so as to test the veracity, test the truthfulness or non-tamperability of the machines, I would say. Okay, whether the EVMs are tampered or not, by installing the 5% machines with microcontrollers, which will enable the verifiability. Okay, so this is the remedy that the Supreme Court had suggested in April 2024, so that 45 days, within the 45 days, if anybody files a petition in the court for verification of the results of the election, that will be entertained and microcontrollers would be verified. Let's move further to the next article now. This is the background of EVM. When were the EVMs came into fashion? When were they implemented for the first time, introduced for the first time? All these things. Now coming to US aid. Donald Trump, in his ambition to make America great again, he is saying that we are splurging so much of money on the countries and we are in a way, making America poor, making America backward in terms of technological innovation, in terms of its defense preparedness. It is with this in mind that he signed on the very first day of his presidency, starting from January 20, he signed a presidential declaration that all the offices of US aid, United States International Aid Program, which spends around $45 billion every year by giving financial donations or aids to countries like Haiti, Syria, Somalia, South Sudan, all these countries that are there in the list will now be facing a slash, will now no longer be able to get funding from the US aid, US International Assistance Department. Okay, so Ukraine, Ethiopia, Jordan, Somalia, Congo, Afghanistan, Yemen, South Sudan, Syria and Nigeria. As of now, in 2024, Ukraine was the biggest beneficiary. Thanks to the war in Ukraine, thanks to the rehabilitation efforts, US was spending a lot in Ukraine. You see the bar here, this denotes Ukraine, $14.9 billion out of $45 billion, $43 billion that are spent by US every year. So this now has been curtailed. 10,000 employees in the US aid have been asked to go on administrative leave. Only 139 to 140 employees will be retained in the department, which was started in 1950s by the then president of the US. So it was for mending US ties, or it was for granting relief to these countries, for spreading the goodwill of the United States of America. But now that American economy is on the decline and Donald Trump is a very shrewd businessman kind of a president, so he is saying, why are we spending on these countries? Well, what is in it for India? India is not that great a beneficiary, is not that major beneficiary. India gets only 2% to 3% of the US aid. That too in the health sector. Okay, all this is covered here. Let us focus on India. Well, projects in India suffer. In India, the quantum of funding has reduced over the years. Ever since India started growing since 2007-8, US, UK aid, US aid, all these aid programs of these countries, rich countries, they started slashing their funding for India, which was not out of place because we are growing. We don't need any donations. Okay. Now, over the years, with the government of India objecting to certain aspects of conditions, the conditionalities that you will employ a US company, that you will not give any project to Russia, those type of conditions were not acceptable to India. Okay, and they would ask us to buy the machines made in USA only. Health machinery, for example, or road infrastructure project should be given to US company only. These type of conditionalities that come along with the US aid, US assistance to India, were not acceptable to India. So that is why gradually the funding started coming down. In the last decade, India is said to have received around $1.5 billion, which amounts to, like, you can say 12,000 or 15,000 crore rupees, which is good number considering India's health budget, considering India's problems like tuberculosis, AIDS, then the drugs problem that we studied the other day, then your total fertility rate and overall achievement of sustainable development goals. Okay, sustainable development goals, for the achievement of these goals like eradication of malnutrition, hunger, this requires a lot of money, and 15,000 crore rupees is not a small amount. But compare this to the 80,000 crore rupees that we are spending on Manrega. So do we really need this? That too, when it comes along with strings attached, the conditionalities attached, right? To enable India to pursue its own diplomatic policy, independently, be it with Russia, Iran, China, or any other thing, we don't really need 15,000 crore rupees. I'm quoting the amount a little higher. It is around 8,800 crore rupees for $1 billion. So add another 44. So it amounts to 13,200 crore rupees. Okay, so India is getting about 0.2 to 0.4% of US aid's total global funding of around $45 billion. Okay, over the decades, US aid's role has evolved from food aid in India to infrastructure development capacity, okay, economic reforms and more. But we don't need that much. Okay, the association between India and US aid began in 1951 when President of US was Harry Truman. He signed the India Emergency Food Aid Act. That time, India was facing famines. India did not have enough food to eat. Indians, we the people, right? So that time we needed that. But as of now, we no longer need that much, need this money, which is 0.2% of 0.2 to 0.4%. And this clipping says that this funding of around $3 billion that has come to India, okay, overall, it came to India from 2001. Of this, 25%, okay, 20% has come in last 4 years only. That means a lot is coming in the last 4 years during Joe Biden's presidency. But now that Donald Trump has come, he is having no sympathy for India when it comes to export tariffs, import tariffs, when it comes to deporting back the Indians. He is on the journey to make America great again by doing all these misadventures, withdrawing funding from WHO and then US aid. All these steps are being taken to save the precious American resources. Now, the association, this thing you should know for the prelims knowledge that you require. Okay, then funding mechanism. How does it get funding? It receives funding allocated in the US budget. And this body was US aid was created by the US Congressional Act. It is a statutory body. Even though the stay has been put by the president, in order for it to be discontinued forever, a US Congressional Repeal Act would have to be passed by the US Congress. Then only this funding would be stopped forever. The department would be abolished. Now see here, $44 billion the agency spends roughly every year. Media reports say that, this is very important, US aid accounts for 42% of all the humanitarian aid tracked by United Nations in 2024. So US aid is accounting for 42% of humanitarian assistance, be it in the refugee crisis in Bangladesh, Myanmar. So my point is, for India, what matters the most is not the aid for India itself, but India's neighboring countries are very poor. Talk about Nepal, talk about Bhutan, talk about Bangladesh, Myanmar, Sri Lanka, then your Maldives, and most importantly, Afghanistan, Pakistan. Okay, Pakistan's GDP, I'm taking a guess, even though on the lighter note, I think 30 to 40% of Pakistan's total income, the money that they are getting, comes from programs like US aid, when US was supporting the war against terror in Afghanistan. Pakistan was getting $1.5 to $2 billion, $3 billion every year. That was a huge amount to for a country like a failed state like America, the Pakistan, right? Now, India should be worried about its neighboring countries. If this funding is withdrawn, it may not impact India directly, but indirectly, the countries, the neighboring countries of India, which are very small in terms of their economy, might get affected. That is the problem we should be worried about. This is all in this news article for us for the UPSC preparation. Rest is not as important. Okay, central or state. Now the problem is the pundits, the policy makers of development welfare say that this is not going to impact India much. But will the central and the state governments be able to back up? Will they be able to provide enough resources to compensate for the withdrawal of US aid? That's the moot question. Now, practice questions, etc. You can see this. Which of the following statements about the US aid is correct? Please answer this question quickly. I give you 10 seconds, 15 seconds to read the question and answer it right here, right now. More questions will be shared on the Telegram channel. So this is the question. US aid is a government agency responsible for administering foreign aid and development assistance. US aid focuses on promoting economic growth, humanitarian assistance, and democratic governance in developing countries. Okay, so President Truman, Henry Truman, started this, and this US aid is a statutory agency that was created by the Act of US Congress. This is the question. Now, the first editorial for the day. Let us quickly deal with it. This editorial is saying, can marriage be the remedy for rape? If the perpetrator of a crime like rape, rapes a woman, and then the bench of the Allahabad High Court says that you marry this woman and you would be allowed to go scot-free, or you would be allowed the bail. Okay, this has happened not in one, not in two, but three recent cases in Allahabad High Court. Even though the Supreme Court in one of the cases had said that the section 473 of CRPC, which contains the conditionalities for bail, conditions for granting a bail to the accused, should be adhered to, and there should be any compromise between the victim and the perpetrator cannot be one of the conditions. Okay, if you are subjecting a woman who's been raped by a man to live the whole life with the same man, whither justice? Where is the justice in this? Okay, it's the travesty, the worst kind of travesty of justice that can happen to the woman who has been the victim of rape at the hands of the same man. Right? So this is the problem with this issue here. Now, what happened? The judiciary offering bail on the condition of marriage. The perpetrator, the accused, is given the option to marry the women. This is like Andha Kanun, the old era archaic system that used to be there during the kingdoms. In the Islamic countries, the same type of practice happens, right? To perpetrator of sexual violence is problematic. Allahabad High Court in Atul Gautam versus State of Uttar Pradesh 2025 recently granted bail to a man who has been accused of raping his interfaith live-in partner on the promise of marriage. In the live-in relationships, if a man gives the women the false promise of marriage and later on backs out, later on escapes from that or breaks that promise, the woman has the right to file a case of rape against that live-in partner. Because the women can say that she entered into the live-in relationship only because that man had promised to marry her. Breaking this promise will tantamount to charges of rape, which is fine. But asking somebody, this is still acceptable. Okay, live-in relationships, they were already having some love or angle of love in the relationship. Now that one person is backing out, the other is complaining to the police authorities, going to the judiciary. But in the case of a brutal rape, can the court ask a person to marry the women? Otherwise, he will go to jail. There is an element of coercion on women. Coercive power is being used, that otherwise you will be labeled as the victim of rape, that you got raped. As a woman, it will affect your identity forever. Otherwise, it's better you strike a compromise, marry this man, and then society will still say that, okay, you are married to the same man. Rather than being called as raped, it is better to called as raped and married. Better to be known as raped yet married. Okay, so Supreme Court guidelines in Aparna Bhatt. This case will become important for you. In Aparna Bhatt versus State of Madhya Pradesh, bail conditions mentioned by the Supreme Court, they said that they gave the Supreme Court gave guidelines to all the courts in the country that bail conditions should be such that they avoid the secondary trauma. First mental harassment happened when the crime happened, when the rape happened. Secondary trauma would be to ask the women to marry the same man. Right? So bail conditions, the Supreme Court said that section 473 should not be expanded beyond the theoretical scope of granting bail. You cannot have extraneous conditions that for giving bail to the man, to the perpetrator of the crime, you ask him to marry. This is not within the scope of section 473 CRPC, which deals with the bail conditions. Okay, so this is there. Bail conditions cannot be arbitrary or extend beyond the ends of the provision. Theoretical ends of the provision are this, that a person should be filing a surety bond, etc., etc. He should not go outside the same city or town. He should pay attendance every day at the police station or judicial magistrate. These type of conditions are there. But if you impose a condition that bail would be granted to you, that if you marry the same women whom you raped within next 6 months, otherwise after 6 months you will be lodged in jail. Is that man ready to actually marry the same women? This is still immaterial. Is that woman ready to spend whole of her life with somebody who raped her? Right? But you see, let me give you a contrarian view also. Let's see the other side of the argument. Why do courts do that? Courts do that because sometimes the travesty of justice is the best kind of justice, considering our society, social issues, the image of a woman, and what would the woman do if she is not married to the same man, right? Looking at the overall context, the courts are sometimes bound to give this kind of a justice, which is a Pyrrhic victory for the women. Pyrrhic victory means a victory which comes in which the cost is more than the loss actually. A woman is given the sense of justice, but that justice makes her spend her whole life with a man who raped her. Every wedding anniversary, imagine they would be thinking of the same trauma. At least once that lady would be thinking of it. Okay, but this is our Indian society. On one hand, we have urban women where adultery and these type of practices, modern practices are going on. On one hand, we have urban India which talks about whether marital rape should be criminalized or not. On the other hand, we have another India, that is Bharat, where marriages are solemnized under the rubric of rape, under the rubric of bail. Garlands are being offered to each other. This is the tragedy of two Indias. Now, summed up in one sentence, impact of such reasoning on the survivor: marriage is a remedy for the rape. Okay, these judgments equate a woman's dignity with her marital status. These fundamental statements are important for you to capture and write down in your notebook. Such reasoning perpetuates the problematic belief. It is further perpetuating, spreading the belief that marriage is the remedy for rape, which should not be the case. Okay, resorting to an alleged loss of purity or honor violates the autonomy of the survivor, but also legitimizes an unequal and coercive marital relationship. Okay, coercive marital relationship where the husband has got the upper hand. That is the problem with it. Possibility of abuse under the guise of reconciliation. Every time within this marriage, husband might abuse the women because he did not want to marry. It is the Judge Sahab's blessing. It is the honorable judge's blessing, with whose blessings this marriage got solemnized. The criminalized marriage got solemnized with the Ashirwad of Judge Sahab. What is the guarantee that the damad, that the man in this marriage actually wanted to marry her? Isn't there always the all-pervasive, ever-continuing fear of abuse, domestic violence, or extramaritals, or so many things like that? What is the guarantee that this marriage will actually continue? Right? So this is there. The first condition of marriage is mutual trust. And here is all rust we see. Now, this article is concluded. Dependent relationships. The court inadvertently reinforce a narrative where the survivor is forced into a dependent relationship with the accused, often without genuine consent. Okay. So you all are aware of what is going on. Another related matter, Ranveer Allahabadia thing. Ranveer Allahabadia, the famous podcaster, the pseudo intellectuals who are hosting intellectuals and tarnishing their image. The real face comes out, and they are talking about familial sex and other things, objectionable things out in the public domain. So we need to have a guard on the social media. As a news analyst, it's my duty to talk about it. Freedom of speech has a limits, okay? But we as a society, we need to see whom are we giving that charge of being the moral torch bearer. Hollow people, the pseudo intellectuals, even though there is YouTube, even though there is freedom of speech, but that freedom of speech comes with a responsibility, both on the part of the listeners, viewers, and on the part of the speakers the more. So this is what the two-way communication needs to respect. More on it in the coming days whenever any editorial appears. Now coming to this thing, in the Supreme Court Right to Privacy of Adolescents Judgment 2004, the Supreme Court held that state must provide essential support such as shelter, food, education, counseling for victims. Abdicating state's responsibility. The actual solution to this is, let me quote something from the acid attack victims policy. Okay, government has now started giving rupees 5 lakh to the victims of acid attacks. Can't the same thing be applied or emulated or molded over here? Why the rape victim, whose responsibility is on the state of India to protect those victims, that responsibility is being outsourced to the perpetrator of the crime? The worst thing a civilized society could do. You are asking the criminal to take care of the victim for whole of life. Hypocrisy of society revealed again, right? Though it is the responsibility of the Indian state, why can't we respect or celebrate those women who survived rape, who still muster the courage to lead a good life after rape, who still nurture the kids, the babies born out of the rape, who still respect life being born out of them? That is the outlook that needs to change at the societal plane. Courts are not to be blamed here. Okay, the society needs to be blamed here, and the state needs to make such women the role models who muster the courage, who still have the will to live despite having been traumatized, despite having been maligned by the society. That's all in this editorial. Now, the solution, the resilience, the reliance not only on the perpetuates the cycle of exploitation. This reliance that marriage will be the only guard against the tag of raped women. Okay, so under Article 21, it is the violation of fundamental right to life with dignity. Life with dignity is the crux of Article 21, not merely animalistic life. By subjecting a woman to spend all her life with the perpetrator of a crime like rape, you are snatching that dignity from her. She is at the mercy of that so-called husband all through her life, if at all the marriage continues. Now, coming here, Sheikh Hasina and Muhammad Yunus. August 5, Sheikh Hasina, the background quickly, Sheikh Hasina comes up with the reservation policy for all those who lost their parents in the war of independence for Bangladesh in 1971. Mujibur Rahman scheme, the scheme was dovetailed with the name of the father of the nation Bangladesh, Mujibur Rahman, father of Sheikh Hasina. Now she, in the light of this declaration of this reservation policy for all the survivors or their families of the 1971 war of Bangladesh independence, she faced a lot of criticism from youth of the country Bangladesh, which was already suffering with the high rate of unemployment. The moment came to such a halt that she had to seek an exile in India, which she was granted. Living in exile in India, she again mustered the courage after 6 months of mayhem in her own country that she would address a press conference on February 5 from India for the people of Bangladesh. That leads us to another spell of violence in Bangladesh, where Muhammad Yunus guarantees that elections would be announced. Muhammad Yunus is, working as a caretaker government leader under the aid of and with the help of Bangladeshi army. Now he assures the world, the United Nations, that he would ensure the smooth transition to an elected government. But after February 5 declaration that Sheikh Hasina wants to address a press conference from India for the people of Bangladesh, that led to another spell of violence where thousands of people came, the mob came on the streets and demolished the historic monument, the erstwhile house of Sheikh Hasina's father, Sheikh Hasina, which was declared to be a national monument. It was vandalized, it was demolished. Bulldozers were there even as the army was an onlooker, a bystander, doing nothing to stop the violence. Many of the houses of these Awami League political party leaders, they were torched, they were vandalized. Even as the police authorities, the army again was a mute spectator. So, what is in it for India? India wants peace and stability in its neighborhood. We have invested a lot in Bangladesh, the infrastructure projects, the $5 million line of credit. We were talking about the US aid to India, but we should also talk about India's aid to its neighboring countries, Nepal, Bhutan, Bangladesh included. So Bangladesh, we are spending a lot on the railway line project, Kaladan multimodal project, okay, to connect India's northeastern India states with the mainland India through West Bengal. Even though we had our own sour points, like not sharing the Teesta water with Bangladesh, but relationship was good. Haseen under the Sheikh Hasina. Relationship was all good and beautiful under the name of the lady, under the leadership of the lady Sheikh Hasina, who is now in exile in India. Now Muhammad Yunus says that India should extradite, that he will file a petition with India to extradite Sheikh Hasina. But no concrete, no constructive step is taken by this leader in transition or a temporary leader, non-elected leader, to actually remedy the situation and bring back the law and order in Bangladesh. This is about what is going on in Bangladesh, why it started on August 5, some reservation policy for those who survived the 1971 War of Independence was announced, that led to a trigger of violence, that became a trigger factor for this long spell of violence, reaching up to a level where the incumbent Prime Minister had to seek an exile in the neighboring country, India. That's all for this. Now, Bangladesh, a neighboring country, our neighborhood is going on like musical chairs. Earlier it was Bhutan, with which we did not have good relations. Then Sri Lanka saw a kind of credit problem, the financial sustainability problem. We bailed out Sri Lanka also. We bailed out Maldives also. Then it came to Myanmar. Myanmar is in a fight with itself since 2021. Where military junta has ousted the democratically elected leader Aung San Suu Kyi and is killing its own people. Myanmar is killing its own people, the Muslim Rohingyas, Hindu Rohingyas included, because it is a Buddhist majority country. Then came Bangladesh, which is again embroiled in a fight with itself. This is the state of affairs in India's neighborhood. Sometimes we should have a checkout. We should basically check out what is happening in our neighborhood. Now, this is their perilous path. We have covered this editorial. Now, quickly coming to this, India's health sector budget is just 0.79% of its overall total GDP expenditure. Okay, so this year's health budget has also seen a dip in actual numbers. The saga, the same story of budget estimates being more than the actual expenditure, reflects here in this social sector expenditure also. Perhaps predominantly, specifically, our focus here will be on the health sector allocation. Health sector, key cancer medicines exempted from customs duty. Budget announcements 2025-2026. Changes in BCD on X-ray tubes. Allocations for healthcare sector up at rupees 90,658 crores. DPI applications planned for healthcare sector. These are the major announcements. Now, 200 daycare cancer centers. More cancer centers would be set up. Okay. Key initiatives: broadband connectivity for government schools and primary health centers. Social sector overall, and then health sector specifically. Pradhan Mantri Jan Arogya Yojana coverage for 10 million gig economy workers, Zomato, Swiggy workers. Heal in India, to promote medical tourism, to promote surrogacy, to promote cost-effective treatment in India from the countries of the Western world. There, the cost of health expenditure is very high. Health treatment is very high. So come to India, heal in India for attracting medical tourists to India. Customs duty relief for many medicines to make them affordable, because the number of the incidents of those diseases which are cured by these medicines are on the rise in India. So these things are happening. Now, 2.4% of total union budget is being spent. Total union budget, I'm saying, not GDP. Don't confuse the expenditure of total GDP, percentage of total GDP, with the percentage of total budget. Even as the National Health Policy says, 2017, it has an ambitious target of spending 2.5% of India's GDP on health. The mayhem, the tragedy that we saw during COVID-19, we need to prepare for such more pandemics and epidemics in the times to come. Because as global warming is happening, the incidents of microbial attacks, COVID type of attacks or epidemics and pandemics are going to increase as per the scientists community. Okay, so we need to be prepared for that. But now coming back, why this funding is increasing? Even though this is a good number compared to the past years, last few years. Why? Because 15th Finance Commission grants for the health sector are to be routed through Union Finance Ministry. Okay, so 15th Finance Commission grants, since they, for the health sector, they are pending. There is a pendency. Earlier the money was not allotted. So that is why more money is being allotted from union budget this year to compensate for the last 4 years, 3 years of the tenure of the report of 15th Finance Commission, which is for 5 years. Now, the union health budget saw negative growth in the past 3 years, 14% in 2022-23, 1% in 23-24, and 6% in 24-25. The revised budgets for 22-23 were 15% and 18% lower than original allocations. Boost in 2025 budget allocation, it got a boost, 18% increase compared to 24-25, with the revised budget 3% higher than the initial 24-25 allocations, which is a good thing. Okay, but it still falls short of the NHP, National Health Policy target of 2.5% allocation for the budget, guys. Okay, so this is there. Now, reasons: there is a 70% increase in the health budget routed through Finance Ministry to distribute the 15th Finance Commission grants. So you should know this reason for prelims this year also. All right. The expansion of Union Health budget is primarily driven by urgency to release 15th Finance Commission's final year health grants. Since health grants, if they would not be allotted to the states, it will be a violation of the constitutional provision. It will be a violation of the recommendation of the Finance Commission's recommendation. Okay, Finance Commission is a constitutional body, even though it is just a recommendatory body, but to have some semblance of respect for constitutional bodies' recommendations, Finance Commission is respected in the sense that all its recommendations are majorly, broadly, they are accepted. Now that the recommendation was accepted by the government, when 15th Finance Commission submitted its report, it is good to spend that money which was committed to the states. It will help us in more than one ways: constitutional compliance with the constitutional body's advice, then sustainable development goal funding for the states, third, non-litigation, avoidance of unnecessary litigation in the Supreme Court, that union government has not allotted the funding for health sector as recommended by Finance Commission. So this is there, but the funding still falls short of National Health Policy 2017. This was all in today's news analysis. I hope you enjoyed it. It was a bit longish, but we covered 2 editorials and we dealt with them in a threadbare manner. The important judgments we noted. We saw what is happening in India's neighborhood. We saw what is happening in the world in terms of US aid. Our Prime Minister in France for a first AI summit, how to regulate AI, how to manage the advent of AI in a manner that is constructive for the world. With this, I take your leave. Tomorrow again we'll meet at around 8 or 5 a.m. with many more such issues. Sometimes the issues would be of polity, economy, international affairs, sometimes they would be of science and technology. EVM issue in this news analysis was important. Go for the technological terms that are there embedded in the article. We have tried to decode those terms for your convenience. I hope that will be helpful to you. Make crisp and concise notes out of that. Thank you guys. Bye-bye.